Okay. It's not easy because these institutions don't like to give away their data. But in some cases, it's not easy because they have various accesses to data. And put yourself into the shoes of someone who's not an economist, but who wants to know important, whatever, macroeconomic data. Then you just pick your smartphone and you want to know what the IMF has to tell you about the growth rate in Germany in 2024. Now, if you want to get to the stuff that you really are interested in, right? Maybe a panel of data or so, you have to get to the data portal, and that's sometimes not easy. Now, I'm telling you all this because you can access this data by clicking on the data sources menu item on our homepage. Now, if you go to that site, which is actually my website at the Uni of Mainz, let me check whether it works. Yes, that's my website. It's not super modern, but it's okay, right? This is at the institution. Now you have that data sources thing. And then you have here the IMF. And then you can go to the IMF, start search. That's what we offer to our students to make their lives easier, right? You just have to follow just the IMF direction. And then you get this. Now, as I said, the IMF has recently overhauled its data portal. I hope that in the medium run it will work very well. In the short run, it doesn't work at all. So I found it super cumbersome to deal with it. So if you want, you go to the old version, and let's hope that this is quicker than it used to be on. Last week. Okay, that works. This is the old portal. It's still active until May 31. So you can use the new one, and then you go to the International Financial Statistics. Loading, loading, loading. Now you can do a query. And this works quite well, right? You say, what are you're told to do is the following. Download and plot quarterly data on the Thai baht's nominal exchange rate against the US dollar between 1990 Q1 and 2025 Q1. So what you do here is you say, you specify a timeline, you want to have quarterly data, and you want to have it from 1990 Q1 to 2025 Q1. You don't want to have years. So that's taken note of. Then you go to the country, you say you want to have, actually you later want to have both Thailand and the United States. So you take Thailand, you take United States, say okay. And the indicator, that's the important thing, is you type in, you go to the exchange rate, and then you have here national currency per US dollar, end of period rate, and national currency per US dollar period average. I click on both. So you click on this, you have that. I'm very quick, right? Because I expect you to do this on your own. And then it's important to to expose yourself to that experience. Now you have the candy bar doing its thing. Okay. Now you see that you have something like a table. The other thing that I would like to have is prices. And I type in price, and what I get is, well, consumer price. I want to have prices, consumer price index, all items for both countries. And here you go. You have for Thailand, you have the exchange rate, national currency per US dollar, end of period rate, exchange rate, national currency per US dollar period average, and you have the consumer price index, all items. And you have that for Thailand and for the United States, where of course the dollar exchange rate for the United States is 1. And the last thing you can do is you can say you want to export. You export this by choosing XLSX. And that does the trick, right? And so that's how you should do it. And then just plot the nominal exchange rate and plot the real exchange rate. Of course, to plot the real exchange rate, you have to know how to compute it. But that's a simple recipe. Now, the second thing is a bit more theory-driven. It's about international income comparisons and the role of purchasing power parities in actually doing these international income comparisons. And this is super interesting, I'll promise, because you probably never thought about this. And Hui, who's asked me this morning, what does PPP mean? PPP adjustment, you will know, right, after this exercise. So suppose that you're using the market exchange rate to turn countries A's nominal GDP into country B's currency units, blah, blah, blah. I'm not reading this. An economist, argues that the procedure prescribed in Part A tends to systematically underrate poor countries' real GDP. Do you agree? Justify your answer. C, and now here use the World Bank's World Development Indicators to produce a scatter plot that relates countries' GDP per capita in current US dollar in 2020 to their GDP per capita in international dollars. Now, to do that, you go again to the data sources thing on my website, right? And then you can click on World Development Indicators. Again, you go to the World Bank and you search World Development Indicators and you get this. Now, the World Development Indicators is super useful, right? This World Development Indicators is just a treasure trove of data. You want to know the literacy rate in Pakistan. You want to know which percentage of roads are paved in Senegal. You want to know the primary school enrollment ratio in Indonesia. You go to the World Development Indicators. Now, the thing I want to show you is when you go to GDP, you get GDP in current US dollars, right? So it's translated into current US dollars using the market exchange rate. And then there's GDP in PPP current international dollars, right? And I expect you to do that for all countries that you have in the sample. In fact, you have to be careful because it's not just countries, it's also country groups, but we'll later see in the spreadsheet. And then the last thing is what time do you want to have? Well, you want to have 2020. And so you apply changes, and then you load the data. And what you get is for Afghanistan, you get that number. And again, it's super easy. You download, you get an Excel spreadsheet. There you go. And now, when you open that spreadsheet, you get two things. You get for Afghanistan, you get GDP in current US dollars, and you get GDP in current international dollars. Wait a second, I think I made a mistake. It should have been GDP per capita. Sorry about messing up things. How do I do that? Let me check. GDP per capita. GDP per capita in constant in current US dollars and GDP. I think what I'm going to do is the following. There's no GDP per capita in purchasing power parity. So I stick to what I did before, not per capita, but GDP in current US dollars, and then divide by the population. So where's the population? It's population you need total population. There's a lot of population data. Population, female population total. Okay. Apply changes. Now I have three things for Afghanistan. I have GDP PPP in current international dollars, in current US dollars, and population total. Again, I downloaded. Please note that I have that for a lot of countries, and I download that. And the bottom line will be that we'll see that if you translate countries' GDP per capita into US dollars using the market exchange rate, you may go seriously wrong in assessing the country's relative prosperity. That's the point. And I first want to show you why that is the case in theory, and then I want you to download the data and look at it. Okay, so that's now the last thing is about the Burgonomics example, absolute purchasing power parity. So here you get the table and explain why the economist argues that the Peruvian sol, PEN, was undervalued by 22% against the US dollar in January 2025. So you have the Peruvian sol, and it was interpreted as being undervalued. B, do you agree with this assessment? Justify your answer. And C, would you agree with the statement that the British pound, GBP, was undervalued in January 2025? So the British pound is, where is it? Britain is here, and the economist assessed it to be undervalued by roughly 1%. And the question is, do you think that is plausible? Is that a good statement? And I want you to think about the kind of possibilities and limits of PPP. What you should not do, last point, don't do this. Not because it's worthless, but because you can't do it at this stage. Maybe you can, but I'd rather do a little bit of talking about it. So the plan is to spend the next hour downloading this data, doing this theory stuff. I'll erase the stuff on the whiteboard just to give you some space to present your solutions, and then we talk about the solution. And if there's some time left, which I think I'll add a little bit of lecturing in the afternoon. Okay, so I think you will be fine with an hour because that's not super complicated. It's not trivial, especially the second problem is not trivial. The first problem is just downloading data. The third problem is just doing the Burgonomics stuff. Okay, good. Oh, wait a minute, I need it.